welcome to another episode of High Voltage. I am your host. I am international best-selling author MacKenzie Nelson, and you are plugged in and tuned in to episode 42 of my podcast. Today, I wanted to talk about the kind of love you are generating toward others. I see, a lot of posts about how love is love, and definitely love is love, but love is also dependent on the contingencies that you attach or do not attach to it. Is the love you are extending unconditional or conditional? Conditional love has a subset of contingencies that go along with it, while unconditional love does not. Unconditional love says, I see a person, they are worthy of love. Conditional love says, I see a person and I'm not going to love them unless they agree with me, or I'm not going to love them because of their skin color, or I'm not going to love them because of who they love. This is called conditional love. And the type of love that you are extending really is dependent a lot of times on just the love you learned in your home growing up, whether you're 40, 20, 50, 60, 70. If you've never really taken the time to examine the household you grew up in, what kind of love your parents showed to one another, did they hug, did they kiss, were they affectionate with you, were they telling you that they loved you, was it a healthy, unconditional type of love you were raised with? If so, great. That is ideally and probably optimally the kind of love you are extending to everyone else, because love was freely given to you and you understood and felt that love, so you were able to easily pass that on to others. In my experience in the home I grew up in, I particularly had a mom who was very verbal abusive. She got angry pretty easily, lost her temper a lot, yelled a lot. I got hit. But then she would also have times where she was very kind and sweet, and she would tell me she loved me. So the kind of love someone like me is raised with is a conditional love. I was told I was loved when I behaved well, when I did what she said, when I agreed with her, when I behaved according to her standards. That was positive affirmation from my home growing up. When I disagreed or I was asserting my own opinions on a matter, you're not loved. That does not align with mother's opinions or standards of living. Therefore, you are not going to feel love from me. So the love I learned was an agreeable love, that I was stripped of my personality, so to speak, and had to conform to these rigid subset of conditional love standards my mom was continually putting on me. If I disagreed, if I behaved differently, if I did anything she did not think I should do, there was a punishment. There were even times where I couldn't even eat what I wanted to in my own home, because if I didn't eat what she had for the night, I had to go to my room hungry, and my dad would sneak me like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Which, I get that to a certain extent. I think that's relatable to a lot of us. We want our kids to eat nutritionally. I'm not faulting my mom for that one. But what I am saying is, none of us as parents are perfect. But if you were raised in a home where there were some kind of abusive treatments happening, but they were also, on the other hand, telling you that you were loved, you have some things you need to work through in order to assure that the love you are passing on is a unconditional one. Because when we learn conditional love and we don't do the work to go on a healing journey or even be retrospective about our past and how that's playing into our present, I don't believe we should ever live in the past, but I believe the past is to be learned from, and it can be a benefit to study where you came from, to understand some of the things, the habits, the ideas you picked up, So you can re-examine for yourself if these are still things that you in present day align with, and if you still want to carry them forward into the future. So I believe if you haven't assessed that, then more than likely the love you are carrying around and passing on to others has a subset of conditions, and they might not even be the same ones. You might just have gone the opposite direction because the love that you were raised with hurt you. So now you're swinging this way, but you're still doing it in different ways. You still have conditions on your love. So if this is something that's new to you, or you've never thought about, or you feel you have been damaged and there's things you're doing now as an adult that you're like, why am I doing this? Why am I saying this? Like, oh, how do I get past this? I always recommend therapy or meeting up with a therapist. There's so much goodness that can come out of sitting down, even if you feel you're in a very healthy mental place. If you've just got some things to work through, it can be a very big benefit just to sit down and talk with someone, have them assess, this is how I was raised, and maybe I'm doing some things that I'm like, why am I doing them? Where does this come from? They can help you make those correlations, and they can help you understand more about your actions and how to work through them so that you can be the healthiest embodiment of love for your spouse, for your children, for your friends. So that's the kind of love that you are continually bringing forward into other people's lives. That is what I continually strive to do, and why I have this podcast to encourage you. There is no shame in sitting down with a professional and getting an assessment and trying to understand more about yourself. It is very powerful to have that knowledge and that validation from someone else about your own lived experiences. So I believe love is love, but I think it's dependent on which kind of love we're talking about. Some people's version of love is an abusive version of love. Some people's version of love is a whole version of love. A lot of it depends on, when we break down love, what is your definition of loving others well? Who are you loving well? And what standards are you applying to who gets your love and who doesn't get your love? Maybe you're withholding your love from someone based on a predetermined existing set of circumstances that you were raised with and taught, but it's not something that you actually believe. The reason you're buying in and continuing it is just because it's been embedded in you. I see each home that we were raised in as its own training ground. Each family is different, and each parent is different because their lived life experience is different. None of us have the same journey, which is what makes us so uniquely capable of sharing and encouraging one another, because you haven't been where I've been and I haven't been where you've been. But when we come together, we can find commonality, and we can find things to learn from one another that will make us stronger for the future and for other people to benefit from that. And that is the love I'm talking about, bringing forth into our community, into the areas where you are, talking to people, where you're working, where you're visiting. You can bring that light, so to speak, of love unconditionally everywhere you go. And you just never know if you have the courage to push past something you may have been raised with, to not like a certain subset of people or group of people, whether that's race or gender or whatever it is. If you dare to have the courage to think, hey, do I really think this about this certain group of people? Do I really think that? Or is this just something I learned and I have to go through an unlearning to understand more about who I am as a person? Because there's who your parents were and there's who you are, right? But how they molded you has impacted each one of us as on a significant level. And I believe as adults, it is our due diligence to examine where we come from, where our past is at, and like how that molded us, and the things we believe now. Why do we believe them? Are they because they were ingrained in us and that's just what as children, we're so pliable and manipulatable, and we're so able to have information embedded in us in such a way that it differs as an adult. And it's been really a process for me, a healing journey, which is in my book, which is really what started a lot of this learning about myself on a larger level, about how I'm loving, how am I loving others, how am I loving my kids, how am I loving my husband. It takes humility to explore this at a deep level within yourself. But it's a journey that has been so worthwhile for me that I want to encourage you as well to take the time, whether that be journaling, linking up with a medical professional, just talking, being more open about your life with your friends. Some aspects of our lives could be more embarrassing or shameful, or maybe there's that one thing you do that you're just like, oh, if someone knew this about me, they would not like me anymore. You would be amazed at when you open your heart and your mind and you talk to other people about your struggles, how many people are sharing in a lot of the same aspects of daily struggle as you are. It's just that each of us is really, made to want to connect and love and present the best version publicly of ourselves all the time. But we all have things. We're all works in progress. We're all learning and inputting various amounts of wisdom and knowledge on a daily basis. And I think it's so important to set that time aside and have that time where you're like, what have I learned recently from where I came from about what I'm doing on a daily basis? It can only help make you a better person, make you better at your job, emotionally, physically, spiritually. If you really don't know where to start, reaching out to God, even if you're in your living room right now, you're in the car or wherever, you don't have to be in a church building. He is always as close as a breath away. He's always right there with you. He's in this conversation now. And all it takes, it's very simple. You just reach out, grab a hold of that lifeline he is always extending and say, God, where do I start? I'm ready. I'm doing some things that, don't feel loving towards other people. I'm having a lot of problems with relationships, and I'm just feeling like things aren't going well, but I can't get my mind around what is going on. He will direct you if you reach out. He will make it known who he wants you to connect with. And it will happen in ways that are unique to you, because God knows he made us all to specification in accordance with his plan over our lives and our purpose. So he has equipped you with everything you need to achieve your destiny, which is really exciting. But it doesn't mean that that's going to be an immediate connection. Sometimes you're going to take some windy roads and go through some hard obstacles, and that's been my journey. But he is faithful to see us through all of these things and to give us the knowing that we aren't journeying alone. So love well, friends. That is my challenge for you this week. Open your mind up to loving someone today that previously you thought, I have no time for this group of people, or for people like this, or I had a friend like that once and I can't talk to that. She reminds me of that friend. Well, just because of that, it doesn't mean you can't show some courtesy or some common kindness, and the amount of extent of love that we are giving to one another is going to vary, based on intimacy level and variables like that. Like, how close are you to this person? How close do you want to get to this person? It doesn't have to be like I see so much societally anymore, all or nothing. There is a middle ground where we can love people, from a distance, or an acquaintance in a grocery store or wherever. Just extend kindness wherever you go, because I do believe there's so much hurt, in the world, especially now. Kindness is needed, and you just never know. You might smile at someone and save their life. Have a great weekend, friends, and I'll catch you next time.